you so much, everyone. So let's get started, shall we? Our eyes on President Tinubu's promises, his aspiration. Now the Supreme Court judgment has been delivered. For the next, for the four years that he signed with Nigerians, he's going to be Nigeria's president, undisputable. And as far as we're concerned, as a people, he must perform and he must deliver. And Nigerian has to go forward. We are in that space right now that the only thing that we have right now is for Nigeria to get better for the good of all. And so how can this happen if he cannot deliver on the promises and the mandate and the campaign promises he made to Nigerians? He said we should put him to task, and tonight is one of those nights that we put him to task. The 3-day ministerial retreat for members of the Federal Executive Council has come to an end. The president had on Wednesday sent shockwaves through the cabinet members when he named Adiza Bala Usman, the special advisor to the president on policy coordination, as head of the new performance bond, which contains key performance indicators. And he also warned that if they don't perform, they risk being shown the door. I mean, not the entrance door, the exit door. Now, the president, at the end of today's session, of course, spoke his mind. The SGF also spoke about gave a summary of what has been said. Let me allow you to listen to President Bola Tinubu at the end of the retreat today.
The Renew Hope agenda is more than economic growth. Like I said at the opening, we can spend the money, but we cannot spend the people. There's nothing you can do successfully without good health care, reduction in poverty. Like I said before, poverty is not a shameful thing, but it's not acceptable. Are we going to dig our people out of it? If you look at your background, no matter how wealthy you are today, there's a trace of poverty in it. So it's left for you and I to navigate this ship out of poverty.
It's heartwarming that the president, on one hand, understands that there's a lot of poverty in Nigeria. How they are going to navigate the ship away from poverty land into the shore of prosperity is in the from one P to the other P. Well, there is one thing in the middle. There is a bigger P, which is a problem. So from poverty to prosperity. How they are going to navigate with the P in the middle is the P of the president and his cabinet. They promised to do that. Well, that's another P anyways. But tonight, let's get a sense of what all of these P. So that the one that I like is the other P on the other hand, where they promise the prosperity, which is what every citizen of Nigeria wants. I'm being joined tonight by one person who has held not only one ministerial position, but two. And he's also been around for a while. He's been the Director General of the NESG, and also a former Minister of Information and Communications, Chief Frank Nweke Jr. He joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. It's good to see you.
Same here. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
You've been in this particular kind of space before where I know former President Obasanjo had similar situation where he had put people in the room to think about policy and delivery. But this kind of retreat, what do you make of it? Is it different from what you've seen?
Okay, well, first of all, Shinwe, it's good to see you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the great work you're doing for our country. First of all, ministerial retreats, not unusual. I think it's the right thing to do. And you ask me in several ways, it's coming rather late. It's been 5 months into the administration. I think this cabinet is probably about 2.5 months old or thereabout, or almost 3. And I think that this retreat could have come even much sooner, but better late than never. I think that it's important for this president and his team to come together, to really, discuss what the president's vision is, and then the very specific plans that he has for the country. So I'm very happy that this retreat has taken place. I'm even more pleased with the clarity with which the president has spoken in terms of, the authority that he understands is vested in him, and the fact that the buck stops with him.
I mean, it's good that we hear someone who takes responsibility, yes, ownership, and he's always said,
absolutely,
the buck stop with me.
Yes.
And I prefer someone who takes responsibility. Although I hate failures, but then it's beyond, the problem of Nigeria is beyond just taking responsibility. It's about performance. Now, you heard what he said about the responsibility of taking Nigerians out of poverty.
Absolutely.
Is on him and his people. The kind of policy that we need, the modality, the mechanism, do you think they are in place right now?
Okay, so first of all, I don't want you to even underplay the importance of a ministerial retreat with the president, okay? Because the easiest route to failure is poorly defined expectations. That's the easiest route, right? And any leader who cannot inspect what he expects is going to fail. You understand what I'm saying? So by having this team come together, I expect that by now, that before this retreat, that each of these ministers should have received a formal letter, as we did in our own time, outlining with clarity the expectations, say, from the FCT minister. What kind of, say, capital city does the president expect to have?
I heard now from the outcome of this meeting is that FCT needs to return to the master plan.
Good. And that was the kind of thing that President Obasanjo clearly defined in his letter to Minister Nasir El-Rufai when the cabinet. There needs to be clarity in terms of a letter to, say, the Minister of Finance. Okay, what are the expectations? What are the fiscal expectations? What are the macroeconomic expectations? There's going to be a letter to the Minister of the Interior, very clearly outlining, in the context of the Renewed Hope agenda, what will this mean for internal security? What will this mean for immigration services? What will this mean for customs services? What will this mean for all sorts of specifics? It's extremely clear.
And I mean, perhaps, if we are to be critical, maybe there should be a quarterly review of those expectations.
So, I even believe that, okay, and it's important, having had this opportunity myself, so not just quarterly review. I even believe, given in the context of where we are today as a nation, the country is in very dire circumstances across every level and across every sector of our economy. That's the truth. Let's not deceive ourselves. We're in very dire circumstances. So for me, it's not quarterly reviews are good, but I believe that the president must be in a position to actually have an up-to-date information on what is happening, whether it's on a fortnightly basis, whether it's on a monthly basis. What else? What job else? Tell me what other job you have. You're the president, right? And if you understand that we're in very dire circumstances, then his time must be managed in such a way that he's looking at very specific key sectors.
He doesn't really have the time to change things around, does he?
Does he?
What do you think?
Where we are, I believe that this thing can still be done, but all hands must be on deck. The president must be at his very best. His presence of mind must be unquestionable. The speed with which he acts on specific issues must be apt, very, very top range. There's no room for any kind of failure or that kind of laxity or whatever. There's absolutely none. We're in very dire circumstances.
I imagine that the situation, that popular picture of Barack Obama sitting in the back chair, and you see the generals in the United States Army when Osama bin Laden was going to be tracked in Afghanistan, and they were commanding from the control room what was happening on the ground. And in that sense, we see that the commander-in-chief cannot make mistake. And I see the situation of Nigeria as such that there are those who are on the field, and the president, like you're describing now, is the commander-in-chief, and he cannot afford to make errors, isn't it?
There's no other person that bears the title of president in our country today. He is the president of Nigeria. And he's been elected to deal with the insecurity in our country. Nigerians want to feel more secure. I want to feel more secure. He's been elected to pull Nigerians out of poverty. Today, Nigeria is the poorest country in the world. 63 million plus citizens of our country are being identified as living in poverty. Nigerians, the unemployment is out of this world. Without, never mind the shenanigans at the Bureau for Statistics where somebody says that anyone who is employed for 2 hours in a week, then the person is employed. That's nonsense. You're playing the ostrich, okay? Today, the unemployment rate's in excess of 40%, based on a recent report by KPMG, right? You need to deal with issues of capital formation. Our country is literally broke. That's the truth of the matter, right? Investors are fleeing. Last week, Morgan Stanley had to classify the Nigerian Stock Exchange in a new asset class, showing that investors coming in here are coming at their own risk. All of these things must be reversed in order for Nigeria to be taken seriously, in order for the image of Nigeria to be restored, but even more importantly, in order for us to really put our economy back on track, in order for investments to come in with a much needed capital to really rebuild our country. You need to look at issues of infrastructure deficit, all right, as a matter of priority. And when we talk about infrastructure, there's this tendency to believe that it is for the purposes of bringing in private investment. I want to drive on smooth roads as a citizen. I want to feel secure as a citizen. I want a policy environment that will enable me to carry on my business as a citizen. I want a policy environment and a fiscal policy environment that will allow the creation of jobs as a matter of routine so that youngsters can have employment, okay? And so that the current brain drain is mitigated. I want a healthcare system that works. So all of these circumstances I've described are basic circumstances that you need even as citizens, which would therefore benefit even foreign investors when they come. So let's not make it sound as if something special is being done. You want to create a conducive environment. First of all, create a conducive environment for us to even have a good life as citizens. It's basic. It is those same circumstances that foreign investors require. I want to be able to go to a judiciary that I know will dispense justice in a fair, equitable, and logical manner. Read my lips, right? It says foreign investors also want a judiciary that works. I'm not going to fix the judiciary because I want foreign investors to be able to protect property rights or to ensure speedy disposition of disputes and things like that. This is the same kind of judiciary, the qualities of the judiciary that I want as citizens. And I believe I speak the minds of everybody.
It's even trite. What you are saying is that in other crimes, when the judiciary or your legal system is faulty, then it creates a lot of problem for foreign direct investment, because people will say, if I put my money there in an uneven, unstable legal system, yes, anything can happen. Policy, somersault and all of that, you lose your money easily because no legal system to protect you. If there are things, because you mentioned creating an environment that citizens can operate in, and also a judicial system that works, so you're talking about economy reformation and judicial reformation.
They go side by side. You can't divorce one from the other.
These are immediate low-hanging fruit that must be done, isn't it?
Low-hanging fruits that can be done, right? People want disputes to be resolved very quickly. People want predictability. And so when you have a judicial system that undermines our jurisprudence, the very history, the very essence of what we are, right? Then the only way to go is for our democracy to become comatose.
Chief Nweke, you managed the Obasanjo, the public perception of Obasanjo government as a Minister of Information and Communications, and the information that came out of that government. For someone who understands that kind of task at that level, how much of the reputation of this government would help this government deliver on its mandate? Because is that important, though?
It is extreme. Listen, unfortunately, there's a tendency to actually trivialize the importance of communication in public governance, which is regrettable. Really regrettable. Why? Because, listen, if you have asked for my mandate, if you've sought for my mandate as a citizen, and I have given you my mandate, right, I have a right to know what you are doing with that mandate. In fact, it is in your interest that you communicate to me what you're doing, because you're probably going to come back next time. It is in your interest to actually ensure that I'm engaged, because there are certain aspects of the policy the policies you're going to put out that require my support in order for them to work. So communication is so important. But I'll tell you something else, right? It's not just going to be communication for the sake of communication. You must understand that there's a difference between the kind of massive propaganda you undertake or you mount when you are campaigning and the kind of communication you need when you have won elections. Elections have been won. I want to suggest most respectfully to government that the propaganda about what we're going to do, what we're not going to do is over. Right now, I'm interested in knowing what you say you're going to do, how are you going to do it? How are you doing it on a daily basis? It's extremely important. The citizens have a right to know. Abridgment of press freedoms, abridgment of human rights, abridgment of the right of expression, right? Abridgment of that right to know, it has no place in a democracy, and it is ultimately going to backfire.
I mean there are situations where ministers in cabinet will not even accede to interviews. Well, I mean, it looks as though sometimes you almost will prostrate and beg for public officers to come and talk about policy decisions. Does that make sense?
No, you see, Sean, it is a very disrespectful position to take. You're a public servant. That is what you are. You don't even have a choice, as a matter of fact. The only thing I request of citizens is that, you see, engagement must be respectful. Engagement must be respectful. Incessant abuse or the use of poor language, bad language on public officials, it should have no place in our democracy, in our society. But public servants have a responsibility to communicate to the Nigerian citizens what they are doing, and questions must be answered on a regular basis. Let me also tell you something else, even to go back specifically to the question you asked. The safest way to ensure that you don't have public backlash is one, volunteer the information in advance.
So you
prepare the grounds, volunteer the information in advance, because this is a public matter. It's a matter of it's a matter of public interest. So why are you hiding from the kitchen what you're cooking inside the pot? Kilode? Why? So if this thing you're serving me, I want to know how you're serving me. I want to know how well you're serving me. If you do not open the books, if you do not communicate with me, how will I know? If I'm asking you and you are attacking me and insulting me or threatening me and even having me arrested, then something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong.
And there's a popular attitude, arrogance of office. It's so annoying, especially when you are in the communication space and you see the sense of arrogance that is being portrayed by those who are appointed into office and some elected people into office who have the trust of the Nigerian people in their hands, but they will never be accountable. They will never speak to the issues.
I believe that I couldn't say more than what I've said already. I believe that public servants have a responsibility to communicate with clarity, to communicate factually to the citizens of this country what they are doing on our behalves, what they are doing with the mandate that has been given to them, right? What they're doing with the offices to which they have been appointed. And I think that even the president, hopefully, should take some interest in this. He can only do so much for himself, which is why he has a cabinet. So I believe that there should be a specific directive to ministers and the ministries, departments, and agencies on the importance of this public communication and the need for them to communicate with clarity on the president's renewed hope agenda and the key elements which they're interested, in engaging the public on. Okay, but the other thing that I must say is this: sometimes you're going to find the kind of reticence that you find from, say, public officials for a number of reasons. What's this, right? There are people who may not just be, they may not just have the capacity to maybe public speaking. That's one way to look at it. Sometimes it's just pure incompetence in some respects. In some other cases, it might just border on ignorance. Or I'm here, I'm the minister, or I'm the governor, and therefore you cannot question me. I couldn't think of anything more impolitic and anything more self-defeating. And so, but I think that things will be a lot easier if, for instance, you are making progress and you're able to communicate this progress. So there's something for you to look forward to communicating. And when I worked in the cabinet, of course, I believe a lot was going on. a lot was going on in terms of reforms, in terms of achievement, and this was a time when you found, even Nigerians returning to the country, right, relocating from the country, because there was that, sense of progress, and it was there, and and people lived it, people experienced it. So I think that the best way is let there be, verifiable, factual progress, and you see that citizens of this country are happy to engage, are happy to support you.
I'd like to take you to a tough where it is good for us to lock ourselves in the room and tell ourselves the home truth, because before this roof crumbles on all of us.
Yes.
Can we tell ourselves the truth tonight? If the president is getting it wrong, if we can give ourselves the knocks and get it right, it's better. So in the future, the way they have started, and they say, look, the evening or the afternoon is going to be successful largely by what you do early in the morning.
Absolutely.
From the way they have started, are they starting right from your own point of view?
Well, I don't know from which point you're looking at. Was
it
from
in terms of look, you get into government, what you're going to do is about the policy that you have promised. And you need to identify those promises. You need to put them in a sound frame and be able to run with it. But from what you have said earlier, that is starting rather late. But now they've started. But in the manner in which they're going about it, the attitude of the president, what the president is saying, the kind of environment that we sense, in fact, there are those who are saying that there might be a possible reshuffle of the cabinet or whatever that may be happening. Do you think that the right footing is being taken?
Well, Sheung, well, thank you so much. Sometimes, I'm not in government at the time, so there might be things that one might not be able to speak to with some clarity. Well, let me say this, right? First of all, I have my concerns about certain aspects of certain decisions that have been taken, for instance. This decision to expand this cabinet, right, which even at about 43, 42 at the time, now. It's almost 50 now. Given our the dire economic circumstances in which we are, for me, I don't know what the consideration is, but from an outsider perspective, I think that if I had a chance to make an input, I would say that we must do everything that is practical to reduce the cost of government, to reduce the size of government at this time, not to expand it, not to increase the cost of government. Then, of course, if I had a chance to make an input, I would express very deep concerns about the thrust of the supplementary budget, for instance, certain expenditures being that have been suggested for certain things that we absolutely do not need at this time. So the other way to look at it is, look, the proliferation of these ministries, you're going to look at some of them and you're asking, why is this ministry here and you still have this one, right? Some of these ministries ought to coexist. But I probably think maybe because of political pressure, he needed to, expand it to accommodate people. That's a possibility. But you see, it brings me to the issue of political will. It brings me to the issue of, the president's patriotic instincts, right? What should take precedence? Is it this loyalty to supporters, or it is loyalty to Nigeria, loyalty to the majority of the citizens whose votes you have received? Or is it just to vested interests? It's a dilemma. But if I were the president at this time, I would choose the citizens over those vested political interests.
You mentioned some of these items, like yesterday we were dealing with that matter too. The number of vehicles to the State House, to the wife of the president, to the office of the president. And they said the yacht has now been although we are hearing also that in fact it has been received, that the full payment has not been made, but it was outlined in that budget. It does look like there is a craze for buying vehicles in government. And in all of this, in fact, I don't know how long you've stayed in Abuja in the last days, but each time I'm driving home or each time I'm going home, I see long convoy and that's not the president. Sometimes it's not the FCT minister. And there are those, there are a lot of big people in Abuja, and there are convoys upon convoys upon convoys, and some of these vehicles are foreign-made vehicles. Is there an attitude of government that shows that they really care about the average Nigerian people where you are flaunting wealth in the face of those who are living in abject poverty? Is there a way that the cost of governance can be cut down by, in fact, the manner in which the president himself will show to his cabinet and Nigerians that they are really serious about the level of poverty in the land?
Absolutely. The president has ultimate responsibility. The mandate is his. The legacy that will be created or lack thereof will be his legacy. And I hope that he understands that history beckons. I hope that our president understands that he has a tremendous opportunity to really deal with the significant public trust issues that accompany the administration. I hope that the president understands that he has a great opportunity to really win the trust of the majority of the citizens of this country. But this trust cannot be won if, he appears or he's seen to partake and support the kind of profligacy that we now see, that you have described. I don't think that he can end this trust if the people feel that whilst we're being asked to make sacrifices that the leadership, whether it's in the National Assembly or in the executive, across the states, across the country, that they are not making similar sacrifices. And so the cost of governance must be reduced. And let me tell you something. Sheung, I watched that session you had with some senator, I don't remember who he was, and just the seeming inability to understand basic economics is just what hurts me the most. And what do I mean by this? You are spending 160 million naira per vehicle in an economy where you are borrowing to fund recurrent expenditure, an economy where you are spending over 100% of your earnings to service debt. Right? In an economy where unemployment is as high as 40%, where poverty is endemic, you are spending 160 million naira per vehicle per one individual senator in this country at this time. Talking about basic economics, what does it tell me? So look at, where do these vehicles come from? Where these vehicles come from, it just means that the motor companies have to keep people in employment in order to produce it, right? And so you have motor assembling companies in Nigeria. However inadequate they might be, whatever their shortcomings, right? This is what we have now. And then in order for these motor companies to continue to operate, they need to be patronized. Now, if they're not patronized, how can they keep operating, right? In order to bring down the unemployment, then you must actually ensure that you support the owners of these, the operators of these motor companies, in order for our youngsters to be trained, in order for them to be employed, in order for them to be able to put food on the table, in order for you to mitigate insecurity, in order for you to mitigate criminality, in order for children, the fees of school children to be paid. That's why you need to support these industries. Don't forget what happened. In America, I think it was in 2009, under President Obama, when there was this global recession and the motor industry was severely affected, right? Now, President Obama understood very clearly that if the American government did not intervene in that sector, that, a lot of people were going to go out to work. And it was going to have dire implications for, not just for the industry, but for the overall economy. That is what it is today in Nigeria. But our people fail to understand it, right? So all these vehicles that are coming, they're coming from somewhere. You are boosting the economy of those countries to the detriment of your own economy. There's even something I thought you might have asked, right? Okay? The last National Assembly, 4 years prior, vehicles were also procured. 8 years prior, vehicles were also procured. What is the method of actually depreciating those vehicles, right? Why is it that every 4 years you need a new one? Why should that be the case? At whose expense are these vehicles being procured? One of the things you read out was actually the Ramfak law and everything. Yes. You stated it there. So we must go further to find out, okay, fine. Having flouted, at whose expenses are these vehicles being procured? Do these senators eventually pay for it? The House of Reps, do they eventually pay for it? And when they are leaving, they're also given severance allowance. So the failure to understand that, we are undermining our own economy. We're undermining our youth who desperately need jobs.
Car production company, which is owned by young Nigerians.
Yes.
Innocent is there also.
Yes.
And they are all Peugeot, GAC, and
all these guys are there.
They are putting it together.
Absolutely.
Well,
they're there.
Yeah, Mr. Nweke, to finalize on this conversation, we are in a dire strait. We are at a moment where we cannot lack leadership focus in this country. Absolutely. As a final thought tonight on this program, what would you say that the president, because he's a man that is charting the line now, what do you think he must do to get Nigeria working now?
Well, first of all, he must recognize that he's the president. Campaigns are over. He's the president of all of Nigeria, irrespective of political leanings. Who supported, who didn't support, it doesn't matter anymore. You're now the president of Nigeria. He must understand that where we are today, he needs to take some extremely bold decisions. Not just bold for the sake of being described as bold, but bold in practical and pragmatic terms, bold in a way that will help to turn around our economy. Mr. President should please understand that, yes, I don't know what you want to do with your cabinet. There are some fine gentlemen and women there. Please make sure they're in the right places. But more importantly, define your expectations. Define your expectations ministry by ministry. When I was in the cabinet, we actually had weekly reviews. Members of the economic management team, we had 2 hours ahead of the federal executive cabinet meetings. We would come in 2 hours ahead to actually review certain critical sectors of the economy before the cabinet convened. And so this helped every cabinet member, when they come, to know that when we come in every Wednesday, the President Obasanjo was interested in knowing, what are you doing with this ministry? What are you doing with this program? What are you doing with these initiatives we've agreed? Those questions were asked on a weekly basis. And most people will be shaken if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So for me, I believe that it's in the interest of the entire citizenry of this country to wish Mr. President well, to wish the administration well. It's in our interest as well. It's in our interest. Because we want to live in peace, we want to live in prosperity, we want to have a country that we can be proud of. It's in our interest. And I hope that every Nigerian, irrespective of political affiliation, irrespective of ethnicity, would understand that at this point in our history, we must all come together to really support the administration, support the president, to really turn our country around.
Frank Nweke, thank you so much indeed. A former Minister for Information and Communication, former Director General of the NESG. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
and those thoughts. And it's good to drag you out on television at this time.
Thank you.
Very reluctant, but you see how impactful it could be.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.